So there was no show on Thursday and no show on Friday because I'm doing a bunch of stuff for a new studio. But there's a lot of stuff that happened while I was gone, and I wanted to weigh in on it because I didn't want to wait all the way until Monday to share what I think of this. So the last show was Wednesday that we did, and we had Alton Sterling, the shooting of Alton Sterling happen. We had the Philando Castile shooting happen as well, and then last night we had the Dallas police shooting. So I'll start with Alton Sterling here, and we'll move along. But what happened with Alton Sterling? Officers were called because allegedly somebody had threatened somebody with a gun, and it was an anonymous call to 911. So the officers showed up. Now they think it was Alton Sterling who was threatening people with a gun. We actually don't know if that's true. We don't know if he was actually the suspect because, according to the person who owned the store where this all unfolded, the parking lot of this store, this guy says that Alton Sterling was a great guy. He was always there. He was always welcome there. And he was not the one who was threatening somebody with a gun. So it's a little up in the air right now as to whether or not he was the person who was actually suspected of even doing this thing, which led to what happened next. And obviously, you probably already know what happened next, and you can see on the screen here some of the aftermath. But the cops showed up. We actually don't have video, at least yet, of when they showed up and the exchange that happened with Alton Sterling and the initial exchange, and then what led to the escalation and what led to basically the wrestling between them. But it ended up like this. You see Alton Sterling laying there dead in the parking lot. You see one officer laying next to him, pointing the gun at him. Daily News has this was their cover. His hands were empty. Now, I actually pulled up the video here, and we can go through it a little bit. I actually slowed it down, and it's a tough video to watch. There's a few different angles of it. This, I think, so far is the clearest angle, but even this I don't think is super duper clear. But so you see the two officers, they're both on top of him. They feel like his right arm is reaching for something there. Then they both take out their guns, and they both have their guns pointed at him. You could clearly see that this officer, who's on his knees with his back to the camera, has the gun pointed right at Alton. And by the way, there's audio for this part as well, where they're screaming, "He's got a gun! He's got a gun!" And they think he's going for the gun at one point. The camera kind of points away here, but this is where the shots are being fired. And you'll see it'll go back to them in just a second here. But when they go back, he's laying dead there. They shot him multiple times. I'm gonna pull it back here for just a second. So again, you see the officer that has his back to the camera. He's got one leg covering his arm. You can see his hands are kind of in a submissive position there. Alton Sterling's hands. Look at his hands. So this is when they're screaming at him, "Don't go for whatever is in your pocket." "Oh, he's got a gun. He's got a gun." Look at his hands. That's a submissive, like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. And this officer feels like his right arm is moving. But they both have their guns out. This is the thing I don't understand. They both have their guns out. They're both pointing it at him. He had already been tased twice by this point, by the way. So they think he's going for the gun here. He's going for his pocket here. And then there's this rollover. And then there's the shooting. And then by the time we get back to here, look, there's one part where an officer comes up and takes something out of his pocket, maybe a firearm. But again, we don't know. Somewhere along in the rest of this video, the officer comes up and takes something out of his pocket. But it was still in his pocket. So whatever, the claim that he's definitely reaching for a gun, to me it seems totally unclear. It seems totally unclear. And the thing that I can't get over is, okay, you have two dudes here. These dudes are gigantic. Now, he's big too. Alton Sterling's big too. But he's clearly he's on the ground, on his back. One guy's directly on top of him, mounted directly on top of him. The other one's right next to him with one leg over one of his arms. Both of them have their guns drawn, pointing at him. By the way, the officer with the back pointed to us is not the one who shoots him. It's the one who's directly on top of him. But, so here's the thing. Here's what I don't understand. What do you think? He's Superman? Like, he's going to pull out a gun in this scenario, two officers already having guns pointed at him, with, like, he sees this gun in his face. Alton Sterling knows that this guy, this police officer right here with his back to us, has a gun directly in his face, and I'm sure he notices this other guy here with his hand either on his gun or drawn, already pointing at him. With two guns already in your face and two giant officers already on top of you, having neutralized you, and you've already been tased twice, that dude's going to reach for a gun at that moment? I have a very, very, very hard time believing that. Now, do I think that this officer thought he was reaching for the gun? Yeah, I do think that he probably thought he was. Okay, but is this a justifiable shooting? No. Shooting's supposed to be, like, very, very, last chance. You have to make a split-second decision, and I know I'm not an officer. I know it's hard. People scream this at me whenever I dare to even give an opinion on one of these matters, but I know it's a hard job. But if your reaction in this instance, based on the evidence we have so far, was to pull the trigger, I don't think you should be an officer. Because I think you're too finicky and too panicky and too fearful all the time. Because given the facts of what we're looking at right here, two big officers, both of their guns pulled at this guy, neutralized on the ground, already been tased twice. Who knows, maybe whatever movement Alton was making, or they thought he was making, maybe that was, from the fact that he just got fucking tased 2 times, and you can get a little herky-jerky when that happens, or if you fall down and you're in a weird position, and your body, tries to move to get back to a better position, if whatever, you feel a twinge in your shoulder or your elbow or your arm stuck underneath you and you got to move it because you landed funny, whatever. There's a million reasons why somebody in this situation could have moved a certain way, and if you're in this position and your gut reaction is not to either tase again maybe, or pull out pepper spray and go for the eyes or something like that, well, then you really shouldn't be a cop. This does not seem like an instance of, oh, it was absolutely necessary, it was at the last moment, and we had to kill him. We had to kill him. I mean, look, people are going to always disagree about these things, and, I get a lot of shit on Twitter whenever I mention any opinion on almost anything, but does this look like a guy who's in a position? What is he, fucking Steven Seagal? What is he, Chuck Norris? What is he, in some sort of movie where he's going to pull some freak jiu-jitsu move and kick both these guys off him and pull out a gun and he's going to kill him? That's what's going to happen? I have a hard time believing that anybody on the planet is stupid enough, given this position right here, 2 dudes, guns out, pointed at him, he's on the ground. This dude is going to pull out a gun and try to knock off both of them and then move along with the rest of his night and go grab a bite to eat. To me, that sounds ridiculous. Okay, so to me, this is not a justified shooting. I think the anger over this is absolutely merited. People are trying to bring up Alton Sterling's, previous criminal records. Oh, he's a thug. I literally got tweets, he's a thug. So basically, he had it coming. That's not a rational argument. He maybe did something a while back which shows that his character was poor, does not make up for the fact that he's now dead and, this situation unfolded the way it did. It's not an excuse of, oh, I thought he was a bad person, therefore maybe he deserves to die. You have to go based on the facts of the matter in this case. And in this case, again, look at that hand, man. Is that not a submissive... All right, I got it. I'm not moving. So, to me, I know some people are saying, oh, his arm's moving, it looks like he's going for the gun. I find that hard to believe. And let's say for a second he was going for the gun. Okay. Wouldn't it make more sense to either pull out the pepper spray, go for the eyes, tase again, perhaps instead of having your gun out and pointing it at his chest, you immediately reach for the arm and you put all your weight on the arm. I don't know. Again, I know it's easy to Monday morning quarterback these things, but to me, when you look at the situation in its totality and how it unfolds, it does not seem like a reasonable use of force, given the situation, given what's happening. I mean, he looks like he could just be struggling on the ground to even get breath, and because of that, he's doing jerky motions, and then they pull out the gun, and he ends up killing him. So, in fact, you know what? I haven't even played this for you in regular speed here. I'm sure most of you guys have already seen it, but let's go ahead and look at this in normal speed, and you get the sound and everything too. And then you'll see what happened. Okay, and I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I actually don't even know if you can hear that, because the way this sound recorder works, I don't know if it could pick up the audio on the screen and the audio from me talking at the same time, so. But I'm sure you've all seen it. Do I think this was justified? No, I don't. Do I think there should be disciplinary action? Yes. Should they be indicted? Should there be cases over this? Absolutely. Do I think that a jury will indict? Do I think a jury will convict? No, I do not, because I think that they're going to say, if there's even a 1% chance he's moving his arm to go for that gun, then these officers did what they thought was reasonable, and yada, yada, yada. Dude, we got to change the police training, man. We have to change the police training. That's totally... To me, that's the main thing. There's so many of these shootings, and they happen so often. In other modern nations, this doesn't fucking happen. In some modern nations, the cops don't even have fucking guns. But here we have police shootings all the time. So the important thing is you have to train them in better de-escalation tactics. And you have to train them to understand that their job is to unwind tensions, not escalate tensions. And it just so happens that a lot of officers, they get on a power trip, man, and they feel like they have the authority. They can bark orders at people. They don't treat people like humans, and that's why oftentimes it's an us versus them mentality to a lot of communities. Police in the community feel like an occupying army. I mean, we have a fucking drug war that goes on where people, if officers have been harassing you every day for your life, or oftentimes, multiple times throughout your life, just because you smoke a little weed every now and then, and they throw people in jail for doing some drugs, and they're not hurting anybody, I mean, it feels like a police occupation. And, it doesn't have to be like that. We can change the laws. We can legalize, tax, and regulate drugs. We can change the training tactics so that officers don't always go to violence and escalate like they seemingly do often. Now, this is not to go after all cops, because not all cops are bad. But we need to change the training so we make it so that they can de-escalate as opposed to escalate. So that's the Alton Sterling case. Then we have Philando Castile. This was in Minnesota. This actually, the aftermath was streamed live on Facebook. And Philando's girlfriend's actually sitting in the passenger seat here, and she's narrating. This part on the right here, this was obviously after he was shot, and then she's recording it, and recording the officer still got his gun pointed at him, by the way, after he's been shot. So what happened, or the piece of the story that we have so far, this officer pulled him over for a busted taillight. And this is how it ended. So they asked for license, registration, and all that stuff for ID. And Philando told the officer, "I'm licensed to carry a firearm. I do have a firearm on me. I want to let you know that." And then he proceeded to follow instructions and go for his ID. Now, for whatever reason, the officer thought, well, no, he's going for his gun and he's going to shoot. And then the officer shot at him. Now, is there any reason to believe that Philando was actually going for his gun? No. There's no reason to believe that whatsoever. In fact, the person who's driving, his girlfriend's daughter, who's, I think, 4 years old, is in the back seat of the car. This dude's going to reach for a gun when he's asked just to show his ID. He's going to reach for a gun to try to, shoot the cop with a 4-year-old in the back, and then they drive off? If you believe that, you're probably a racist, because you just think, well, I mean, come on. He had to have it coming because of some reason. I mean, the cop wouldn't shoot him for no reason. Or maybe he's just a panicky finicky, fearful cop who thought, oh my god, a black guy, and he's reaching for something even though I asked him to reach for his ID. I have to shoot! I have to shoot. Now, come to find out, now this guy, from all accounts, man, he was a great dude. He worked at a school. He literally gave all the kids, he knew all the kids' names. He gave them fist bumps when they walked in the door. And now he's dead. Now he's dead. So, as a result of these two instances, these two horrible, horrible crimes, two instances where the people did not have to die, and the police should have acted with more restraint, if you ask me. There were gigantic protests. Some big protests broke out. And I think those protests are right. I think they're justified, and I think people are correct to ask for, some reform, some police reform. Demilitarize the police. Don't give them all the same weapons that literally the military has, how they get leftover military stuff. Change the tactics. Have civilian review boards for officers and for police departments. There's a million reforms we could do that would limit this stuff. So people are protesting, and they're protesting for that. Well, last night, we had this happen. Dallas police ambush. 12 officers shot, 5 killed during protests. Now, to be clear, the people who did the killing, they were not protesters, they're murderers. So, a lot of people were trying to link the peaceful protesters to the murderers. They don't know the murderers, they weren't in contact with the murderers, they're not part of the same movement. In fact, law enforcement even admitted that. They have a suspect in custody right now, and they spoke to the suspect, and they make clear, well, yeah, he's not affiliated with any movement, and he said that he was angry at cops, and he was angry at white people, and he murdered people, and he said he did it because he's for revenge and retribution. I don't, as of the time I'm recording this, I don't have all that much information yet. All I know is they have somebody, and this is what the person said, at least according to them. So, I already see people trying to say, oh my god, this is, Black Lives Matter is a terrorist group now. Oh, come on, man. And the thing is, you're falling for the same fallacy which was the problem here. So you want to blame all of Black Lives Matter for the actions of people who weren't even affiliated with it, and they say they're not affiliated with it. They're just murderers, okay? And they hate all cops. So you want to blame all of Black Lives Matter, just like the people who did this wrongly blamed all cops for the officer who did this to Philando and the officers who did this to Alton Sterling. We gotta be peaceful, man. Nonviolent resistance is the way to go. A lot of people don't like hearing that. You're fucking wrong. Nonviolent resistance. How the fuck do you think Martin Luther King Jr. eventually got us with the Civil Rights Movement, the Civil Rights Act, and the Voting Rights Act? It was through nonviolent resistance. That's what it was through. How do you think Gandhi achieved his goals? Gandhi's even to the left of me. He's a pacifist. He says, I never do violence, ever. Okay? I believe in violence in the name of self-defense. This was not violence in the name of self-defense. This was murder. But Gandhi achieved his goals through nonviolence. Nelson Mandela, same thing. Nonviolence. Further dialogue. That's how we solve things. You can't defeat a savage mentality by becoming a savage yourself. We cannot be barbaric in the face of barbarity. We cannot be violent. We can't do cold-blooded murder as we claim cold-blooded murder is wrong. If it's wrong when it's done to unarmed black people minding their business, as it's so often the case, it's also wrong when you do it to cops that had nothing to do with any of those instances. These police officers had families, okay? They have loved ones. Blaming all cops for the actions of the cops who did these horrible things in these instances is fundamentally irrational. That's like blaming all Muslims when ISIS does a terror attack. You know, it makes no sense. It's irrational and it's counterproductive. If you think this is going to help in any way to try to bring about justice, you literally just did an injustice, added more injustice to the situation. And furthermore, what do you think? Cops are going to lie down now? You just made it so that it's much harder for people who are doing peaceful movements and nonviolent resistance and fighting the right way. You just made it harder now for them to achieve their goals, because now the communities are more divided than ever. So now there are clear dividing lines, and people are either, pro hashtag Blue Lives Matter or pro hashtag Black Lives Matter. Now you made it so that you're either with the cops or you're against the cops. You're either with Black Lives Matter or you're against Black Lives Matter. Well, let me be the first to say I'm hashtag Team Humanity. You know who I stand in solidarity with? I stand in solidarity with Philando Castile. I stand in solidarity with Alton Sterling. We need justice in these cases, okay? And we also need justice for the 5 officers who were brutally murdered who didn't do it. They didn't do anything. They are innocent. All cops are not the problem. We need to change the police training. We need to do systemic reform and get the right laws in place. And we do that through nonviolent resistance. And you keep the moral high ground when you do that. When you stoop to using barbaric tactics that the oppressor uses, you also become an oppressor. You are not right by definition. Nobody is right by definition. Your actions define who you are. If you believe in murder, you believe in murder. Whether you're on Team Cop or on Team Black Lives Matter, if you're pro-murder, you're pro-murder and you're against human rights. So, from my judging of the situation, man, and I know there's going to be a lot of disagreement on this, and there will continue to be a lot of disagreement. From every area and every corner and every nook and cranny of the internet, everybody's got an opinion, but to me, I do not think that the situation with Alton Sterling was legitimate force. Again, man, this picture right here that you see on screen in this video, that says it all to me. 2 big dudes with their guns pulled directly in his face. He's got his hand in that submissive position here. He was just tased twice, and he still ends up dead because they think he maybe was reaching for something in his pocket, when we know here, at least, if he wasn't anywhere near it. And I don't even know if he was, okay? To me, this could have ended differently. He shouldn't be dead. Justice for Alton Sterling. Justice for Philando Castile. Okay, if the facts as we have them right now turn out to be totally true, yeah, these officers should be fucking locked up. We need justice, and we need to change the training. So, and also in this case too, everything. For each of these cases, it didn't have to end like this. You didn't have to murder 5 police officers. Alton Sterling does not have to be dead. Philando Castile does not have to be dead. So, I stand in solidarity with all of them. We got to come together. We got to be peaceful. We got to get reform. We got to be smart about this stuff. Retribution, revenge, vengeance, anger, hatred. It's not the answer. It's not the answer, guys.